Hello and welcome to the Irn-Cru podcast, an American football podcast made in Scotland by NFL lovers. You are listening to and watching the review crew. And I'm your host, Brian, the conscience of Cleveland Donlan. Now, folks, it has been Championship weekend, and what a weekend it has been. We are going to take you through all things NFL Championship. We're going to be looking at the two amazing games that we've just seen. But remember, folks, like, subscribe. You can catch us on YouTube, on X, on Instagram, and wherever you get your podcasts. So give us a like, give us a subscribe, give us a follow, get involved with the crew. Now, as always, I am joined by some of the finest crew members that we have at our disposal. I've been weighing up the order that I wanted to introduce everybody tonight, and I'll start. We'll go in order of the person who was most relevant most often or most recently. So he is our resident cheesehead, and he actually had a stake in the playoffs until recently. Liam, how are you doing, sir?
Yeah, I'm really well, thank you. Another fun weekend of football. So yes, all good. I'm looking forward to having a good chat about it.
Certainly was. To somebody who thought he'd be relevant a whole lot longer, but sadly turned out to be just as relevant as the Browns. That's not a compliment. It is Fly Eagles Fly man himself. Kev, how are you doing, mate?
I'm good, thanks, Brian. I'm just trying to savour every last bit of football before the season comes to an abrupt end in a couple of weeks. So I went to a friend's fan bar in his man cave. It's called the Bucks Bar, but no relation to the establishment in Glasgow. So I thoroughly enjoyed this weekend's football. It was great.
It was at that, mate. And we've seen some of the pictures. Your friends get quite a wee set up for themselves. It's lovely to see. Now, to a man whose team hasn't been relevant for ages, however, he remains relevant as always because he is the president, secretary, minute taker, and just general chief chairperson of the Brock Purdy Fan Club Association. It is the one, the only Stu. How are you doing, mate?
I'm doing really well. Yeah, that was quite the intro there. I was expecting something Joe Burrow related, but
no.
I've definitely been banging the Brock Purdy drum, so I'll take that one kind of thing. And he did not bad, which we'll get into.
Absolutely, and I'm as a wee preview, a wee sneak peek for everybody looking ahead further into the pod. I'm due a bit of a doing by Stu for some of my salacious commentary around a certain Mr. Purdy. That, funny enough, all happened in a very particular 2 quarters of the game, and not so much in another 2 quarters of the game. But more about that later. Now, before we actually get started, this is a very special edition of the Irn-Cru podcast, everybody, because this is what I wish I had a little sound effects board. If you just imagine a drum roll in your head, it is episode 100. We have been doing this. I actually genuinely couldn't believe it when Keith sent me a message earlier to give me the wee reminder that today is our 100th episode. So a very big thank you to yourselves, gentlemen, for being with us through all of these episodes. All the other guys on the crew. It has been an amazing run. Keith, obviously, for kicking this all off, and to all of the people who listen into us every week as we sit and talk all things NFL. It's something we take a great amount of pleasure in doing, and we hope you guys all continue to enjoy the episodes to come as we move on to 101 and beyond. Now, this is where I was trying to come up with a kickoff question for tonight. And everybody listening, we've been talking this before we come on here, and it's one of those kickoff questions that my link is one you need to squint really hard at to see. Like, you need glasses almost as thick as mine to see this, but stick with me. So, it is the crew's 100th episode. 100 is a century. Century is kind of like centurion, and they were very important people. So, my kick-off question is, if you were going to pick one very important person to build your dream NFL franchise around, who would it be? Now, for the sake of this question, and to avoid everybody saying Patrick Mahomes, We have barred the quarterback position. So you are not allowed to build your franchise around a QB. Let's assume that you have one. You have a fabulous quarterback. You're delighted. You've got Baker. And as such, all is well with the world, and you need no more at that position group. My question then is, who would you build your dream franchise around? Who would that player be? Current players, so we're sticking to people that are active at the minute. Nagging back into the mists of time and pulling out some of the Hall of Fame legends that the league has seen. Stu, would you like to kick us off, mate? Who would your number one player, your centurion, your champion that you're going to build your franchise around? You've always said you like the idea of being a GM. This is your moment to set out your stall.
You know, I feel kind of on the spot here as well, especially with the fact that I can't choose a quarterback. That's really, as we talk about how we have a lot of discussions about how that's the most important position in football, or at least it's one of the most important, apart from kicker. But so I've been thinking about this since
you don't pick Justin Tucker now.
So, and this decision is completely based on recency bias, informed in part by this weekend's games as well. So I'm going to pick a San Francisco 49er that is not Christian McCaffrey. I'm going to go with Trent Williams, left tackle, because I think that if you're going to do well, you need to do well in the trenches. So I was looking at either D-line or O-line, and I think Trent Williams is the best left tackle in the game right now. So I'm going with him.
That's an excellent shout. I do like that. I like you thinking outside the box and away from a glamour position. So it'd be too easy to pick a CMC or something like that. Liam, coming to you next. Yeah. Liam, who would you be going for?
So I went this kind of same route as Stu. I was thinking, left tackle, offense, defensive line. So he's technically still relevant, only just retired. I'm going to go Jason Kelce, a centre. Just because he's a man beast, and see when you see him running out in space and just taking players down, and it's the kind of lead blocker, it's class to see. And obviously the master of the old tush push, getting that going. So I'll go Jason Kelce.
Now, do you know what? I'm gutted now. I thought I was being all clever. So I'm going to put mine, and I would go in Creed Humphrey. Sam, I've same exact thought. Centre. It is the left tackles. Left tackle's obviously vital, but centre your offensive line. I think it's such an underappreciated position. Doesn't get the respect. I really didn't think that's we went 3 for 3 on O-line.
And then we have Kev, who's an Eagles fan, and Eagles are known for having,
I know,
known for having one of the better offensive lines in football. So let's see what he does.
So on you go. Demonstrate that we at the crew appreciate the trenches.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to go O-line because we've been lucky enough to have a pretty good O-line recently. But similar thinking to yourselves, though, guys. Like on the if it's not going to be a quarterback, I think it's going to be somebody on one of those lines, and I would go for someone like. I mean, you said it has to be a current player. I was actually thinking, imaginary guy coming up in the draft. Who would my ideal imaginary draft pick be? But someone in the style of like a Myles Garrett or a TJ Watt would be my thinking. Somebody that can just absolutely wreck other teams' games. So that would be who I would go for.
Love it. Well, all the love for people in the trenches, and Kev even on. Do you know what? I am just simply going to go out and draft the next Myles Garrett or TJ Watt. I am infinitely certain I will find them 10 a penny. Doesn't happen. Particularly the type of area the Eagles draft that. When's your first draft pick this year? It's got to be right in the top of the first round. You guys will have your first this year. It's only Cleveland that doesn't get to draft in the first round. There we go. Something one was up. Who would you build that fantasy lineup around? And I'd say a bit of love, a bit of respect for the trenches, for the much maligned part of the game that doesn't get the love it deserves. Right. Well, it was the championship round, and we only had 2 games to talk about. But they were 2 of the best games of the year. Frankly, thoroughly enjoyed watching both of the games and a great time with the pair of them. So we are going to rattle our way through both of them, folks. And where to start? There is nowhere else really but to start with the first game we had, and it was the Chiefs again on the road. On the road for the second time in this playoff window at the Baltimore Ravens, the much lauded Baltimore Ravens. And Stu, you can correct me, where they had all sorts of. They were the number 1 defense by the end of the year. They were they'd overtaken everybody else on D. They were up at number 1.
Yeah, they'd even taken over the mighty Cleveland Brown defense by the end of the year, so that's kind of saying a lot. But yeah, they were pretty much in the top 3 in every metric that you can measure defenses by. So we all thought that, well, the Kansas City Chiefs and Mahomes, and we've heard the struggles that the receivers have been having, and then you have guys like Kadarius Toney with that injury, I'm not injured, like all that chat was going on before the game as well, adding to it, and you kind of think, well, are the Chiefs going to go in here and perform well? But yeah, you're right, the Ravens' defense was kind of the big story going into this game, and how they would stifle Mahomes, or that was their path to victory.
Hang on, sorry. Were you referring to the recently retired Kadarius Toney? I'm just assuming he's retired after those comments.
I don't know where he's getting a contract next with the kind of chat he was throwing out.
Edmonton Elks. He could go and join the Elks. That would be up to the CFL. Up to the CFL.
I don't know, man. Like the Elks wide receiver core is actually not too bad. In fact, it's so good that we just let like one of the I forgot his name already, but he won like receiver of the year like 3 years ago. He has been injured, or he's only played maybe half the season the last 2 years, but the Elks have let him go because he's kind of deemed surplus to requirements, because the receivers they have in the room are so good. So I don't think Tony's I don't think you get a shout up here.
So I was actually being completely flippant with that, but there we are. Kadarius Toney has played to such a high standard this year and carried himself on social media so well that the offer of him to the Edmonton Elks would be politely declined from Edmonton. That tells you a lot. Well, with Kansas City, I'm taking a lead with this one. I was on Team KC for this game. I'm on Team NFC for the Super Bowl, but that's a whole other story. I was on Team KC primarily because absolutely anyone but the Ratbirds. Sorry, Ravens flock. I'm sure you're all devastated today, but as a loyal Cleveland Brown fan, watching you suffer is my nectar. So yeah, KC did KC things. This was a game that showed you when you've got Patrick Mahomes, anything is possible. And he really just is that player. He's really the only player in the league that can do the things that he does. And it is just incredible. We've seen an absolute resurgence for Travis Kelce coming in for a man who, okay, he was, what was he, 2-3 yards or something like that shy of hitting 1,000 yards in the regular season. He certainly overcame it in the postseason. Put up 116 yards on the day, touchdown, and what a touchdown grab it was. It was a great touchdown that he put in.
Brian, you missed out. He's actually put up 121 yards. You missed out his 1 5-yard carry.
No. I was receiving stats first. Receiving stats first.
Receiving stats first. Okay, well,
and yes, Stuart. Sunday name you. Yes, he also had 5 yards on the ground. For a very respectable 5 yards per carry average, which is definitely a respectable total.
Yes, the team leading 5 yards per carry average.
So yeah, leading the team. But yeah, so a dominant performance from him. Showing us why he's the player that he is. He's a tight end come slot receiver, come utterly unplayable when he decides he's going to have an evening like he had. And it was one of those games where it started out pretty cagey. We had KC and Baltimore, and we're going to talk more about the Ravens specifically in a minute, but they both came out swinging, and KC just started to pull away. Almost ironically, straight, and I'm not going to get this because Liam's going to talk Ravens for us in a minute, and I don't want to steal a bit away from him, but a certain Ravens wide receiver who had a very good game, it must be said, who did actually put up some really good points, but he might have been getting a bit big for his britches and getting a bit full of himself. And then karma is a nasty, nasty mistress. When we had the big punch out from Sneed right on the line, touchback, ball goes over to KC, and they just pull away and away. And before you know it, it's just, you just don't have anywhere to come back against that team. One of the big things, and I don't know if this jumped out to you boys, I think it probably did. Much was made throughout the season about, Kansas City losing or Kansas City struggling. And what teams have had to do against Kansas City for years is if you want to beat Kansas City, win the time of possession battle. Keep Patrick Mahomes off the field. You want to win, that's how to do it. Grind out lots of really long offensive drives, limit how much time Mahomes has, because if Mahomes is on the field, he's going to hurt, he's going to punish you. In our game on Sunday, Kansas City rocked in with 37 minutes 30 time of possession. That's just damning. It tells you all you need to know. If you've got Patrick Mahomes on the pitch for over 2/3 of the game, you really know that you are struggling badly. And it's true, they were. He just came in and he absolutely destroyed them. What were your guys? Any other big ones for you guys last night? I've left a couple of bits, see if anybody spotted other things that were particularly interesting for the KC side last night.
No, I just think, Mahomes is obviously excellent, right? So everything that can be said about Mahomes has been said. But I think looking back at that game yesterday, I wasn't overly impressed with Mahomes. I think Kelsey, for me, stood out as the guy that really stepped up in that match. For all you're saying that Mahomes dominated them and done the damage, they didn't put up a lot of points. It was quite a close game still, to be fair. There was only one score in it in the end. So I think that, the difference for me really was that the Kansas defense stood up and stopped the Ravens from putting points on the board. That's what I kind of feel like it got away for the Ravens.
Yeah, very, very true. And again, a lot was said going into this with the Ravens that if Lamar is MVP Lamar, he is utterly unplayable. Yes, Mahomes is the best overall quarterback in the league, but Lamar's so dangerous. He can beat you with his legs so much that if you want to beat Lamar, what do you need to do? Keep him in the pocket. And that is something that Casey managed hugely last night. Keep Lamar in the pocket. Make him try and beat you through the air. And like Lamar's not a bad passer. This is like I even as a Browns fan, and as much as I might take the mick in the group chat, Lamar, the narrative of all Lamar's just a glorified running back. It's clearly nonsense. He can sling a ball about, but it's not where the strengths in his game lies. It is about that maneuverability. It is about escaping the pocket and extending plays with his legs, and he just didn't have the chance last night. Liam, it come to you and maybe think about all things Ravens. Where did it go wrong? The Ravens, they only put up 10 points in the night. Yes, Casey only put up 17, but they really didn't look like they were. Casey, for me, looked like they could have scored more.
Yeah, Brian, it was a big 17. That was the way I viewed it.
Yeah.
The way talk about that.
I don't know, and this is where it's the one bit I would maybe say is that if you were going to put money in either of the teams to pull another touchdown out of the bag if they really needed it would have been on Casey. It would have been the Chiefs that you had. You got more in the tank you could give us. I just didn't see anything for the Ravens that made me think that the comeback's coming.
Yeah, it was a strange game, especially being at home. I think don't know if somebody came before the kickoff when the Tucker was getting his tea thrown away and stuff like that. Like, oh, you're at home, we're still going to ruin your place anyway. So, the other thing
I enjoyed that hugely, by the way.
I just said about the Ravens.
Pettiness of it was great.
As you said about the Ravens, like, they're been a great defense all year. Their defense was great again last night. I thought, they're flying around. Roquan Smith and Kyle Hamilton were everywhere. But it was just their offense just couldn't get going. Like you were talking about, like Lamar, as much as he's a good passer, he's not improved. Like, keep commenting how much he's improved as the seasons or years have gone on. But the running game just was lacking. I think Lamar had like 54 yards rushing, and then Edwards and Hill had like 20-odd yards between them. I found some crazy stat in the Twitterverse that they had 3 early down runs all game. That was it for the Ravens. And like, that just seems to be getting away from what they've been doing all season. They've been, running that ball, and when they need to, obviously, sometimes it's been the Lamar show, but running it, and then they take their shots. And they just didn't. I don't know what was it. Spagnuolo, great defense, dialing up, he was kind of rushing. I think it was some stat, I think through the commentary was like he was rushing 50% of plays, I think, rushing the quarterback. Was that just kind of throwing Lamar off, just couldn't handle it? And they just couldn't get going. Okay, in the third and fourth quarter, they started to make some plays, and then obviously got the biggest play of the game when Flowers, as you say, fumbled on the goal line for a touchback in the end. But fair to, as much as he should have protected the ball, it was some play by Snead to knock that out. But it was just, they just seemed to get away from what they've been doing all season. I don't know. It was really, they kind of felt as if they outsmarted themselves. They were trying to be too cute about it all, I think, and it just kind of came back to bite them in the end.
Absolutely. Sorry, Brian. I was just going to say, I mean, it was interesting you should talk about the early down runs. I'm sure a stat came up at, towards the end of the second quarter, maybe even early in the third quarter. And it's who was it? Gus Edwards had 2 carries for 16 yards. So he's averaging 8 yards a carry, and he's only had 2 carries. Why are you not running the ball more? I don't understand when, they've been so successful all season. Where did the play calling go? That's, for me, you can't take away credit from the Kansas City defense because they were excellent, but it just seemed very, very strange the play calling that was coming for the Ravens offense, and I feel as though they kind of just let themselves down on the night more than anything else.
The other thing, obviously, that jumps out is all the discipline, if you want to call it that, all the negative, all the flags that are getting thrown around, and even the ones, even the intentional one apparently by Smith, he still, instead of just touching the player that we're talking about, just rattled that 1st and 5. Kind of was the third or fourth quarter, and he just, I think it was the fourth quarter. He just totally bulldozed them.
For the sake of the context, in that 95 yards, the Ravens gave Kansas in penalties, which is wild. They give a team near enough 100 yards for free.
Yeah, Brian. The other thing I was actually going to mention about that as well is of Kansas City's first down. They got as many first downs from penalties from the Ravens as they did for rushing. So they got 5 rushing first downs, 5 first downs from penalties, from the Ravens as well. And I mean, I know that some people like to go down this referee's been put in because he's a ringer, because he always flags. He always helps at the road teams or whatever it was. It's like the NFL's trying to fix it, but I'm sorry, watching the game, I said it during the time when we were watching, or during the game when we were watching it, I'm like, the Ravens are not helping themselves out here with some of these flags. And to a point, there was one later on. I don't know if you guys remember when Kansas, there was the punt that they managed to stop on the 1, or pretty much right on the goal line. Yeah. And so the Ravens were backed up in their end zone. I think it was Chris Jones rushed through the middle, and there was one of the linemen that was he should have been called for that. Cause there's a thing in ice hockey we talk about
tripping.
Basically tripping.
Yeah.
I guess it's game misconduct in hockey. It'll kick you out because it's one of the most likely things to injure somebody. And in that, there was no flag there, but I'm like, surely everybody saw that. It was a clear trip. Not that I'm all for everybody getting flags all the time for anything, but just to put that or the flags were potentially it was the referees out to get the Ravens. That to me did not happen.
I need to say to give the Penguins a bit of credit for the change, or the Zebras, Penguins. I just want this.
Okay.
I just want this. To give them some, I mean, as much as there were, a fair amount of penalties on the nights, there's 125 yards worth of penalties in the nights across both teams. There were none that I really looked at and thought, oh, that's egregious. That's the refs ruining the game. And again, yeah, okay, there was the tripping call that was missed, but I don't know that I'd really say there were any big missed calls either. None that I can think of. I go, oh.
Personally, I think the taunting call on Zay Flowers was ridiculous. I thought that was absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah,
I think that's the difference.
The guy's holding his leg. Normally, the player catches the ball, turns away, and strikes a pose. But he's been held by the defender, so he just stands and flexes his muscles.
Spin the ball on his face.
That's the one where the rule is the rule, so he was flagged for that. But I think that rule is stupid. I think the players should be allowed to. I'm in the Joe Burrow camp of I just let them taunt because it's still as if he's swearing.
Hitting somebody, yeah.
It's an interesting. I don't know.
With a helmet.
Hey, lot to be said for beating a man with a helmet. It's funny though with the taunt one. I don't know anybody that likes that rule. Like, okay, there was a kind of an interesting one on the New Heights pod recently where the Kelsey boys kind of explained the much maligned touchback rule. And they kind of gave their point of view about why they think, no, that should be a rule. You fumble in the end zone, you should be getting really heavily penalised. And that's kind of going against the grain of what most folk would say. Yeah. But when it comes to the taunting rules, I don't know anybody that thinks that's a good thing. But I will say as well that as much as I don't think it should be a rule either. Let them taunt. It's great fun. It's great to watch. It's a really easy rule not to fall foul of though. It's like the one in football, soccer. That always does my head in when players pick up yellow cards for taking their shirt off and they celebrate a goal. I'm like, mate, it's really easy to just not do that. gonna just not do that.
One other call for the refs that I'd like to know you guys' thoughts on, and I think I'm going to be coming across as a disgruntled Ravens fan here, bringing up these calls, but. The interception. Now, let me just say, first of all, the interception Lamar throws at the end, absolutely ridiculous. Ridiculous. Throwing a ball at a guy who's in triple coverage, and he's getting no chance of catching that.
But the hopeful, I loved it at the time. I was just like, oh, that hopeful wee finger that went up, I'm open. It's like as he runs into triple coverage.
See if it was right. I can't believe I'm about to say this. So you can enjoy this when I say it. See if it was like OBJ. It's so daft, but I get it. I understand it. It was likely. It's not exactly
I know what you mean. It's not like a D-Hop or like an OBJ or
like something
the ironically named Isaiah Likely because that was anything but likely, wasn't it? But the reason I bring that up is at the time I thought it, and I've seen replays since, and I've also seen some people talking about it on X on Twitter. But Likely is bundled to the ground while the ball's still in the air by the defender. And I wonder why there was no flag there.
I thought it was a good no. I think it was a good no call. I think.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to throw a flag, players are going to stop and just get a guy run into them, and then they'll fall over, and then there you go.
But he has to stop to have any chance of catching the ball. If he wants to catch that ball, he's got to stop, and the defender runs straight into him. So
that just means it's a bad ball, isn't it?
Or it's a bad ball. He's either ran the route incorrectly, or it's a bad ball.
But he's trying to stop to catch the ball. The defender, one of the three defenders, has just bundled him to the ground. Now I've seen people on Twitter saying, "Oh no, that was after the contact was after the catch." It wasn't. The ball was still in midair when the contact happens. When he's actually on the deck before the guy catches the ball. So I just found that interesting. I mean, I'm not saying that the referees had a terrible game. They gave plenty of decisions to both teams. But for me, I just thought taunting call was a bit crazy, and I thought that one could have easily been given.
Kev, I will say on that, the more, because obviously I'm talking about likely with the finger up, like the hopeful go for it here. I do actually think that part of the decision to throw the ball in there was, as much as it's, and now I'm going to defend Lamar here slightly, after saying it's a good idea. I think maybe they were trying to draw the flag.
Maybe,
that was what it was. It's like either he pulls off an amazing catch, or they think, there's 3 defenders there. They're going to panic. Somebody's going to get hands on him, and we'll get a holding call here.
Yeah,
I think possibly, but then they didn't really complain. It didn't seem like, I suppose when the camera going, we didn't seem to complain about it that much. Which
after it gone, like, where's the flag? But that must have been like Kev said, he's seen the replay, and it does look like, okay, he's been holding a bit. But to me, though, I'm still like, it stands to reason. Just that kind of, there was a couple of times before, because I mean, obviously he took the shot at OBJ before that.
Yep.
That OBJ never got to, and I mean that I think was their chance to tie it up.
Yeah.
At that point as well, though, there was, like, I don't know if it was a drive before or within that same one. I remember thinking at the time, going, "Why are they taking shots for like 35 yards here?" It's like there was still time. I'm like, just go for the underneath route, get the first down. It's like, just keep grinding the clock. It's like you might end up in overtime, but at least you're going to get a score here, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was almost like Harbaugh, the blood went to his head and he just went, "Screw it, we're going for it, guys." Like,
that's going to be a theme today.
I'd love to know.
Yes, it is. I was actually setting up the line to Niners game there.
Don't worry, they're coming. I would love to know, and it's one of these great mysteries that we never get to find out, is like who decided that was the play and that drive. You know what I mean? Was that Lamar? Did he kind of like hot route that one in? Did he make that a bit of an option route that he put in there? Or was that just, this is the play design, this is what we're going for? Yeah. The excuse I'm going to give the refs, before we move on, I'm going to give the refs for that one. See if the refs call that holding, every Hail Mary that ever gets thrown is going to end in a DPI. As it's more or less the same for all of them, where you just hurl it into the end zone for miles away. Everybody's getting clambered over. But no, stop it. Right. Last one on this one, to finish us off, then we have made reference to it, but I'm going to put this one round the table. Is somebody getting praised? There is somebody getting blamed. I think, pivotal play of the game has to be the Sneed Flowers ball getting knocked out, touchback at end. The play of the game for me. It was the pivotal moment. Are we blaming? Now you're not bottling it. None of this. Oh, it was a bit of both. You need to choose. Are we blaming the rookie wide receiver, rush of blood to the head, trying to extend when he needs to tuck that in? He would have got a fresh set of downs on the one. Or is Sneed just pulled off an incredible defensive play? What do we think? You need to choose one of the pair. So I'm talking deliberately to fill a couple of seconds to let you think.
Zay Flowers is to blame.
Kev straight in.
The rookie player has made a rookie mistake. I can't remember what game it was last week, but something similar happened, or maybe last week or the week before. And you know, all the pundits in the studio and the coverage I was watching all said the same thing. You've got to protect the ball there, especially when it's a fresh set of downs on the one. So I cannot for the life of me understand why. Do you know what? See, even if he tucks it in, he's probably getting the touchdown anyway. If he doesn't extend, because he's hurtling through the air. His whole body is hurtling through the air. So if he tucks it in, he's probably going to cross or break the plane with that ball before he touches down anyway. I don't understand why he's trying to reach out, especially with, is there 2 defenders right on top of him as well? So yeah,
there's one vote for Stuff the Rookie. Liam, where do you land?
I'm going to go positive. I'm going to go the positive road with this, Brian, and I'm going to say it's not the rookie's fault. I think he was, on the verge of making a great play, but I think the even better play was Sneed using that veteran awareness to get in there and just punch that ball.
Awareness.
just like one punch man and the ball free there kind of thing. So I think that Sneed was the man in that situation.
Right, okay.
Yeah,
well, you did very rudely talk through Liam, who I was trying to introduce us to. But it does mean that Liam gets the tiebreaker.
The thing kind of blipped on me, so I just jumped in.
Liam, you get the tiebreaker, mate. Where are you landing it?
Well, because I was kind of going on that about Sneed, I was watching it and just trying to see was it intentional or was it just because he was trying to wrap him up and he just had it out? It was going so fast. I'll give Sneed a due. Probably was intentional, but so I think it was on Flowers, and then I think you have to blame Flowers. I think like Kev.
Yeah, I'm gonna. I hate I'm gonna make it even.
And it was kind of. I was going to another thing I was going to say. It's kind of theme of the weekend, rookie mistakes that might cost them. We might get into another rookie who made a bit of an issue in the next game. So
we will. I'm going to make it even more lopsided and blaming Flowers as well. Because I think that was 100% calculated by Sneed. I suppose this is then what I'm going for, is that Sneed has, Stu's right, Sneed's made an incredible play. The only reason that play's been available is because Flowers has made a really poor decision. If he doesn't extend that out, Sneed can't make that play. There just isn't space to make it. So, yeah, I'm blaming Flowers. He's a rat bird, I get to blame. Right, okay.
Poor guy.
He had a great game, didn't he? So,
I'm sure he'll cry into his millions. It's not like he's not going to have a very lucrative NFL career ahead of him. The guy just put up 115 yards on sort of 5 receptions.
Well, as long as he doesn't do a Tony Brian and end up ruining his name, there is that.
Well, true enough, he could do. Right, but yes. Anyway, I think that one we seen the end of it, and we're gonna move on now. So we're gonna move. It was time for prime time, and as I said at the start of the pod, if there was ever a game of two halves, it was this one. So we are going to start at the beginning, and that means we need to have some pride. We need to have one pride. And talk through all things Detroit. Kev, what did you make? Talk us through the Lions in this game.
The Lions started off like the Lions that we've all kind of come to love this season. We've all kind of developed a soft spot for them because of the attacking football that they play. Really exciting to watch, and this game was to begin with, it was exactly that. The first half, they were firing on all cylinders. They were running the ball well with their 1-2 punch. They were throwing the ball, getting up the field, putting points on the board. There was Jameer Gibbs had a great game again, or at least a great first half. And Amon-Ra St. Brown, it's probably the best I've seen him play for a while, although he did put up decent numbers last week as well. And Goff, for me, Goff was actually really good. I've had my doubts about Goff as much as I enjoy watching the Lions this season. Goff, to me, seems a bit fragile, and I worried that this game would maybe be too much for him. I've seen him earlier on in the season where he throws one stray pass and all of a sudden the ball's just flying loose all over the shop. But I was impressed with how he held it together. And ultimately, in the second half, the 49ers just ground them down, as they do in most teams that they play. So I don't think there was too much blame to place on the Lions on the whole for the failure to get the result in the end. I think they started off great and they just couldn't quite keep it going for the full 60 minutes.
Well, do you know what, Kev? I respectfully disagree. Exactly. That's simply we passed around. Although I am going to say, do you know what? So I'll put this one out there. I don't think the players shoulder any blame. I think they went out, they gave it their absolute best. Goff, I was loving some of Goff's passing. He was throwing absolute darts. Some of the motion he was getting the ball was incredible, I thought. And the Lions run game, particularly the first half, Gibbs's touchdown was for me one of the best runs I've watched all year. But
I know where you're going with this.
And Campbell. It's been a hallmark of the team all year. They have been one of, if not the most aggressive teams on fourth down all year. It's one of the things we've loved watching. We've loved seeing it because we love seeing that go for it attitude, and it's worked so often until it didn't.
Yeah.
You need to shoulder the blame for that one because they really should. There's more than enough opportunities last night for them to be putting that to bed if they take a slightly more conservative route with some of the play calling. But if they do that and they play, like we spoke about in the last game, how the Ravens weren't playing the football they've been known for all year, and it came back to bite them.
Yeah.
The Lions do that. If they abandon their philosophy, does that bite them in another way?
That's. I mean, that I knew where you were going with that, Brian. And the reason that I didn't criticise Dan Campbell is because I don't want to be a hypocrite. I've watched them all season. I've loved seeing them going for it on fourth down so often, and sometimes pretty long yardage on fourth down. So I just felt like they had to be true to the way that they've been playing and stick to their guns. And in the end, when they end up going 7 points down, you're thinking, oh, they could have kicked those two field goals. They'd probably still be behind. So I think they felt like they needed more, and they just unfortunately couldn't pull it off.
Stu sat there with his finger up, which makes me really nervous about what he's going to say.
Okay, I'm going to agree with Kev for the most part. They are, and like I actually thought that both decisions they made in the second half on those fourth downs to go for it, I thought those were the right calls because, it was 4th and 3 and 4th and 2. I think they had, and in both of them, it's like if they get the touchdown, their game's done, kind of thing. It's like I think Detroit are winning. Where Dan Campbell went wrong, though, is he did abandon his whole philosophy. The first half in the second quarter, 7 seconds to go, they opted for the field goal in that situation. And I mean, they lost by 3 points or whatever. So, if they don't get if they'd went for it and not got it, we never know. If they would have or not, they would have been on 28 points, I guess, by the end of the game instead. However, if they'd went for it on fourth down at the end of the first half, when they had such a convincing, 14-point lead anyway, it's already 2 scores. So if they went for that usual Dan Campbell aggressive thing, and they had Montgomery's averaging 6.2 yards for the whole game. Jahmyr Gibbs, his average was only 3.8, but I think San Francisco did a better job of basically keying in on him in the second half. That first half was electric.
He's also, I think, it's the one for Gibbs with me is also the nature of his runs. He does a lot more running to the outside. So he was getting caught in the backfield more, but when he got out, Jesus.
Yeah, no, he goes, it's like a train or whatever, like the A-train in Miami is the same kind of thing. But anyway, point is that if Dan Campbell had went for it in the first half, and obviously we don't know what would have happened, whether they would have got it or whether they only would have been 14 points up. If they're 21 points up going into halftime, I think it probably would have been game over, as good as the Niners were in the second half. So I will say I agree with you in part, Kev, that he was right to go for it, because it's that same thing of you can't. He said it himself in the interview after the game. He was conscious of the fact that, well, this is what we've been doing all year. We have to go for it, and I also want to stop San Francisco playing long football, which was what they did as soon as they got ahead. They're just like, we're just going to do the short dump offs. We're going to run it. We're going to, we just go back to playing Niners ball, and that was what they did, kind of thing in the end. But, so I stand by Dan Campbell, but I do say first half, they're killed.
I would third that view. I think I would agree with all of that. I think Dan Campbell's been it all season. I think you have to go with it. Though I suppose there's some narrative out there now that they just didn't trust their kicker, who they picked up off waivers to make a long field goal. So is that part of it? That's just but then means that make an easy decision to go. So who knows?
So what you're saying is that the actual issue was they neglected to pay enough attention to the most important position in football. Right, okay, and that was obviously all they wrote in the game, but it didn't, because that was only halftime when the Lions were doing well. And then they all went in, they had a little sit down. There was a halftime orange or two consumed, I'm sure. And then San Francisco's darkest hour, when they needed a hero, someone to step up, someone to save them. Would it be CMC? Would it be Debo? Would Debo go? No. They needed a man. They needed a mister. They needed a mister man. They needed a Mr. Irrelevant. Who I spent the whole night slagging off, and what's up? Oh, Stu, on you go. Enjoy your moment, mate, because you sat there through the first half and you listened to my absolute spieling mincer. Rotten Brock Purdy is.
You know what, Brian? That was possibly the greatest segue I have heard on this show. So I thought that is a defining moment of the 100th episode. Like that was like you had this ego with Debo ego. Like I already started laughing, but no, it was fantastic. Yeah, I'll not be too mean, but I will say that just to give you a kind of short edited version of Brian's messages to the group chat. He was saying that Brock Purdy was looking a bit more like Dak and or playoff Dak and playoff Josh Allen, I guess, as well, maybe like in playoff Lamar. You know, guys that you know possibly are viewed as great regular season MVP options, but may choke. And in the end, Brock Purdy obviously had a bit of the last laugh on Brian because you promptly went to bed. And I continued watching the game, and I watched as Brock Purdy came out after halftime and went, you know what, I'm going to just do Brock Purdy things now. I will also say that in the second half, there's this kind of storyline that revolves around Brock Purdy that we've been hearing all year about how, oh, he's a game manager, and it's a slur now. Like when we talk about quarterbacks, like in the modern game, like even though if somebody's a game manager, that means they are running the game. So really, it should be seen as a good thing as well. That means somebody's doing the right thing in the right situation or the right thing at the right time. But for Purdy last night, I would say, honestly, second half, I think he shed some of that game management, persona or that narrative that's been written about him because the amount of damage he was doing with his legs. Look, whether it was like rushing outside the pocket or he had like those huge runs for first down that. I can't remember who it was. It was one of the linemen for the Niners. I don't know if you guys saw it after the game. He was getting interviewed in the locker room. And he was talking about, he says, so we're just doing a blocking set. And, I'm just trying to block my guy in front of me and I'm holding him off because we're running like an RPO. Like we knew it was going to be a run pass option. So we weren't sure what was going to happen. And I basically had no idea where the ball was. And then all of a sudden there's all this screaming. And I realised that Purdy has just tore by me and off he goes kind of thing. And I think he said as well, it's like if he hadn't run, because he bounced off Samuel as well at that point, because he was blocked ahead. It's like if he hadn't hit Samuel, he's like, I think he probably would have got the touchdown at that moment, but instead he stopped short. So he had that, and then there was the one where he pulled off a Lamar or Justin Fields escape act, where the pocket collapsed, he came in, or somebody got a hand on him, he somehow managed to duck under that, they flew it to the left line, or to the left touchline, and he threw the ball up for Juszczyk, or I can never say his name, Juszczyk, who caught it with that amazing toe tap, kind of dive and catch, like on the side.
Great catch, by the way.
Amazing, again from first down, just like that. That's that veteran thing as well, and that presence of mind. Like he's a guy, he's basically that utility.
Toe tap swag.
Does everything. He's just like, here I go, kind of thing. And, man, I wish I was that good at something in life, but it was impressive. But you had that, and then. Obviously, the big play that really kept them in it was, and this is in contrast to the Lamar thing when we talk about the throw into triple coverage and how things ended differently. There was that bomb downfield that ended up, could have been an interception, bounced straight off a helmet, like off a face mask.
Yeah.
The cornerback, I think, who was that? Was that
Vildor?
Vildor, yep. It was Vildor.
Sorry, it kind of makes me think of Gildor and some fantasy fantasy references there for people. Anywho, he throws it downfield, but the key difference there in the Lamar one was he's thrown it to a guy that's only covered by one player. So even if you are slightly out, it's like he's basically going like, "Why Ook's down there? I'm going to let my guy maybe make a play in this situation." Whereas we're likely. You're throwing it into triple coverage, maybe hoping for a flag. So the fact that it bounced off and then Ayuk like showed the presence of mind just to be able to go, oh crap, and he throws himself at it, catches it as well. It's like that was impressive.
The one with that, I'll say as well, I don't know if you've caught this, there was a great snippet came out for one of Debo's post-game bits where he was talking about that. And it was like Debo helped create that play and it showed you how good Purdy's reading the field was. Because Debo was the primary target in that route, and he came out, he was cutting across, and he pulled one of the safeties out with him, and that's what left Ayuk alone. That's what created the space for him. And Purdy has been able to work his reads, identify that Ayuk's there and that he is now in single coverage and take the shot. Need to say, a lot obviously been made about Purdy and his legs. Purdy and his legs was incredible in the second half. But second half, Purdy went 13 for 16, 174 yards, a touchdown, no picks. And for the sake of ending it, likes the percentages, that's an 81.25% completion rate. It's incredible football. And then you add in 50 yards, was it 48 yards on the ground. I don't know if that all came in the second half, but certainly the most meaningful parts of it came in the second half.
Big rushes were in the second half. Yeah, the 21-yarder, and that was in the second half. The other thing I'd say on it as well, they're just talking about both quarterbacks. It is funny how when you say that, like he was like 13 of 16 in the second half, but his overall stat line was 20 of 31, 267 yards, touchdown, interception, obviously, 2 sacks. And then you go look at Jared Goff, 25 of 41, so he's missed 10 more kind of passes and made 5 more. Yards, 273, that's only 6 yards more than Purdy. A touchdown, no interceptions, and then 2 sacks as well. More yards lost from that, but in the end, you kind of look at it and go, okay, well, both. In fact, actually, he lost 6 yards more from that. Yeah. But the difference is Jared Goff doesn't give you the running option as well. So Purdy made up more yards for there. But through the air, though, it's actually funny how similar both quarterbacks were. But it was the point I was trying to make there. But
I noticed that as well. Like the overall stats for the game was like total yards 442 for Lions and 413 for the Niners. It was like crazy how exact they were, or just about. First downs 28 to 23 and stuff like that. It was like you wouldn't think it was a game of 2 halves. Really, you think it would be quite even overall, but it was a bit crazy.
But also the fact that we compare it to the Ravens took 8 penalties in their game, and there was only 5 total. In this game, it was like 2 for the Lions, 3 for the Niners, I think, if I have that right.
2 and 3. 15 yards in yardage the Lions gave up, and the Niners gave up 20. Very clean game.
I mean, the Niners in the first half, I think, were hurting themselves with the flags a bit, and then that was in the second half. That was another difference, I would say, for the Niners. They really screwed the nut, and they went, you know what, we need to stop taking flags here. Kind of thing as well, because they were behind. And as we see, 17 point, making that up, is that not the biggest NFL or comeback in an NFC championship game?
There's a question. I don't know that. That's a brilliant one. We should. I feel like we've let ourselves down here, chaps, but not figured that out before we went live. I've no idea, but it's certainly. Do you know? And I suppose what Liam's actually led us into a really interesting one, because for stats that are so late, I think. See, for me, it actually shows how much a game of 2 halves it was, because the Lions dominated that first half. Most of the positive stats the Lions were putting up came through the first half, and the Niners did nothing in the first half. Hence my hubris in the group chat. And then it shows you how big the game flipped almost exactly on its head for the Niners to completely dominate that second half and put it to bed. And don't get me wrong, the Lions were hurt. There was some big drops for the Lions. Amon-Ra? Yeah, Amon-Ra had a big drop. It would have been a kind of a big chunk play.
So Reynolds as well, I think, had a drop.
So there were a few, but it does show you that it's so hard to do this kind of stuff in the postseason. You know what I mean? You need to be so switched on for all of it, because as soon as you take your eye off anything, all of these teams have got the talent to punish you.
Do you know whose name we haven't even mentioned, actually, just before we go on here? It's not a Niner from Detroit's side. Sam Laporta.
Laporta was excellent. Yeah, he was really, really good.
Again, we haven't even mentioned him.
Yeah.
Like 9 receptions, 97 yards. It's like, I think he was the yardage for receiving. He was the yardage leader for both teams.
Well, totally firing. But tell me this, right? I'm obviously I was getting more and more drunk as the night went on. I've suddenly had a vague recollection of an incredible catch, but I can't remember who it was. Somebody pulled off an outrageous catch. Was it one hand?
It's not Jennings. Jennings pulled it
off.
With
Jennings, wasn't it? It was Jennings. That was
Joanne
ridiculous.
Moriarty.
That was just one catch as well. But like, if you're going to do it, if you're going
I
to
get
catch
dinged up.
the game, like,
Did they not get dinged up on that catch?
I think he might have done. I'm not sure, but
Yeah, I'm sure he got dinged up. But yeah, I enjoyed that for the guys in the preview crew. But it was, and I'm very sorry for an Niners fan whose name totally evaded me right now. And I'm totally mind blanking. But what it is, apparently, Joanne Jennings in the Niners fan base is called Joanne Moriarty, which just
Joanne Moore.
that just pleases me greatly. Joanne Moriarty, love it. But yeah, so what a game, what a pair of games. And I'm sad to see the back of them because it was a fantastic weekend of football. Now, with that, it is sadly, as I say, it's time to put the week in the rear view. Now we've limited ourselves this week to a cruise missile and who crushed it for the crew. I'll be honest, when we were talking this before we came on air, everybody, and I thought the cruise missile this week would be fairly boring. And there'll be one nomination, and we've just talked about it. That Ayuk catch straight off a helmet. But I was very quickly shouted at and told that I was full of crap and that there were multiple excellent things to be talking about. So, Stu, take us off with what were your kind of nomination for the cruise missile of the week, ignoring, of course, Ayuk's wonderful off the helmet number.
I mean,
Doesn't see if Stu remembers his own nomination.
There's a few that like aren't considered actual cruise missiles. Like for one, the Juszczyk one,
Yep.
which it was just that amazing play where Purdy managed to get free of the pressure and out to the side and then throw it up for Juszczyk to get the first down and that toe tap kind of thing. So that was one of the ones I'd mentioned. I think so. I'm not saying that was a cruise missile of the week, but that's
no, but
and
I think we're a bit too obsessed in the crew with the cruise missile needing to be a massive air yards pass. I think some subtlety and some expert technique has a big place to play. Kev, what were you thinking? One of your non or one of our alternative suggestions?
An alternative. I liked I think Liam mentioned this before we came on, and it was Lamar escaping the pressure, and then throwing a nice pass up the field for Zay Flowers for the touchdown. So
yards.
I enjoyed that one.
Right, and I'm delighted because I thought you were about to nick Liam's out for under him there. We couldn't do any of these games unless we made reference to this most incredible of moments. Liam, you're your cruise missile candidate of the week.
What the play to himself? A certain Lamar Jackson to Lamar Jackson.
It takes some special talent to pull that off. Like it's just one. We're gonna no spoilers, but we're gonna talk more about that in a wee bit. But yes, that was an incredible one. All of these things, great passes, and again, it's these lovely wee moments that make the games so enthralling. Right, our second last bit of the pod this week, guys. Who crushed it for you this week, crew? I'm gonna come in my mind first, just because it's based off one play. I'll be honest. For me, crushing it this week was Jahmyr Gibbs. Yes, it all kind of happened in one half for him, but particularly his touchdown run. The jukes, the side to side movement that he was showing, I genuinely couldn't believe he didn't. When I watched it live, I immediately thought, "Oh my god, the Niners have blown that entirely." The defenses just let themselves in. Then I watched the replay after. No, they didn't. They tried really hard to tackle him, and he just got away from everyone. So for me, crushing it this week was Jahmyr Gibbs. Kev, who's your crusher of the week?
I'm going to go for someone on the defensive side of the ball for the Kansas City Chiefs, because I think that's what got them the win in the end. And Chris Jones had another game-wrecking performance, so I'm going to go for him.
Absolutely showing why he's worth every penny that Kansas are paying him. I forget what his contract was at the start of the year, but he's demonstrated ably why he was worth it.
Yep.
Stu, and I do not know. I'm going to go to Liam because Liam's about to come back in a minute, so we'll get Liam out of the way here. Liam, who crushed it for you this week?
I'm going to go defensive side of the ball as well, but on the other side of the Chiefs-Ravens game, I'm going for Kyle Hamilton, the safety for the Ravens, who was just, even though he was on the losing team, he was all over the place making tackles. I think he had like 11 tackles, nine solo tackles, or something like that. So he was all over the place. He just seemed to be popping up. Every other play, he was popping up, making a play on the ball. So yeah.
For context, he wound up at the end of the game 11 tackles, 9 solo, 1 for a loss, 1 hit in the quarter. But he was excellent. Stu, with yourself, mate, who is your crusher this week?
I'm going to use that to link all the way back to the kick-off question when I was saying about the recency bias thing. And I'm picking the guy I picked to start my franchise with. I'm going with Trent Williams from the San Francisco 49ers. The guy didn't allow a single pressure or tackle or sack or anything from his side on the field. So he had like a near enough perfect grade kind of thing on the day. So, and he's such a monster every week anyways. But yeah, Trent Williams for me, like what he does for both the passing and allowing McCaffrey to do what he does in the rushing game as well is absolutely monstrous. So yeah, Trent Williams for me.
Absolutely incredible game. Right, and I don't. This could be the first time that this has happened. I actually think it possibly is. Liam, you are going to take us away with the statistic of the week. I guess this could be your inaugural statistic, sir. I'm not sure if you've ever had the honours or the dubious privilege before, mate. You found this one and it's a cracker. So give us our statistic of the week, sir.
Yeah, so we've already touched on a certain play from a certain game, and we all seem to have this in playoff every so often. I think it seemed to be against KC. I remember the Mariota play to himself a couple of years ago, which I think he went for a touchdown in that one. But yes, I found this crazy stat on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it. Credit where it's due to, I think it was Front Office NFL, I think it was from. But yeah, Lamar Jackson was a 13-yard reception, was the longest completion by a player to himself since in the playoffs since at least 1950. Which is one of those stats. I love the least 1950. It's like, what?
It's like, well, we know up to 1950, but we can't be sure before that.
You can't be sure. Yeah.
Legend.
I love the idea that Lamar gets that tweet like printed and put up his wall somewhere. My official record. I hold the longest reception for one guy to himself. So it was such a bizarre play. It was such a bizarre play. Right. Okay. Thank you very much, folks. And that's it. That's been 100 of the finest episodes of the Irn-Cru. And me and the rest of the crew and all of the rest of the guys are looking forward to the next 100. But more about that later. And we've got a Super Bowl to look forward to, everybody. Now, this week, the preview crew is going to start our coverage of all things Super Bowl over the next couple of weeks. Because, yes, we obviously have 2 weeks to get prepared for the Super Bowl. And remember, on Friday, we'll be honing out awards. So make sure you get involved. There's lots to be discussed on X about the Irn-Cru honours. So make sure you're getting pitched in. And thinking about that Super Bowl business, depending on where you call home, you might just be able to get an up-close and personal look at some of the finest crew members. But there will be more said about that in another pod to come very, very soon. So with that all said, all that's left for me to say, gents, is thank you very much for joining me tonight. Stu, thank you very much for coming on, mate.
Thanks a lot for having me. And when are we doing the Pro Bowl preview? I mean, surely the Pro Bowl, we can't forget about
that. Yeah. Do you know what?
I'm looking forward
to
the review of that.
Yeah, I don't. That's what we're going to. Listen, do you know what? I'm going to be positive. They've brought back all of the daft skill games for the Pro Bowl. I'm quite looking forward to those. The flag football bit, not so much. But the stupid skill games, I'm quite looking forward to them. Oh, maybe I need to think of a better idea than the Pro Bowl. Do you know, that's what we should do as a next pod. What should they replace the Pro Bowl with? I'm sure we've all got thoughts on that. Right, thank you very much, Stu. Kev, thank you very much for being on with us again tonight, mate.
Cheers, guys. Pleasure as always. Hope all three of you.
And last but by no means least, Liam, thank you very much once again, sir.
Yep, again, thank you for always good to chat ball every week.
Absolutely. Right, Okay, well, that draws things to a close. Now, remember, you can get in touch with the crew via Twitter or X, as I need to remember to say these days as well, at Gridiron-Cru. You can find us on Insta, grid_iron_crew. Stick Gridiron-Cru into YouTube. You'll find us there. Find us wherever you get your podcasts. Like, subscribe, all of that good stuff. And with that, all that's left for me to say is thank you very much, folks, and we'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.